Welcome to another special edition of Daily Airline News covering the search for MH370. And I'm delighted to say that we are joined again by UK aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Today we're going to cover again the search area and what is happening, and then we're going to move on to viewer questions. There's been a lot of great questions come through from you all, and we'll touch on a few of those today. But before we get into those questions, Richard, can you give us an update on the search area, and we can move into that?
Yes, Armada 7806 arrived in the search area after its long uh, traverse across the Indian Ocean. It's now day two in the search area, and they're working 24/7, launching AUVs and tracking those AUVs, collecting sample data. But we haven't yet seen any AUVs coming to the surface and being recovered. They can last up to 100 hours, 4 days underwater.
So, what's the current position of 7806? Can we drill down to that?
Yes, the current position is in the so-called IG search area. This has been searched before, but the view is that MH370 might have been missed. Therefore, it's being searched again more thoroughly. The Armada 7806 is tracking east-west, back and forth across the so-called seventh arc, and launching and will be recovering AUVs to see if they can find any points of interest.
Now, what about the weather? Discussing the weather over the last few days, there's a tropical cyclone to the north and a bit of weather to the south. So perhaps you can give us an update on that.
Yeah, let's hope the tropical cyclone stays to the north and the other front stays to the south. At the
Mm.
moment, the weather is holding in the search area. The sea state is still quite high, over 2 meter waves, but this is obviously not hindering operations currently. There's a moderate breeze, so anytime Armada 7806 wants to launch an AUV, it turns into the wind and stops dead at a particular location and hovers over that location for a while.
So the search pattern for Armada 7806, it's quite comprehensive, isn't it?
Yes, they're obviously searching as you would expect, in a very methodical manner. It's early days yet in the search on just day two, but you can start to see a pattern emerging of the area they are covering, and the AUVs are being followed by Armada 7806, and they hover at. They stopped in total 6 times so far, and at some of these points they have launched AUVs, and we'll watch how this pattern develops.
So the overall search strategy for Ocean Infinity, as far as we can assess, what's your take on that, Richard?
Yes, I've tracked the exact location and timing of each of these points where
Mm.
Armada 7806 has stopped. you can see that the first two points were definitely where AUVs were launched. They were launched 875 meters apart, which is typical because the swathe of the 1032 SAS sonar is 1,000 meters, and they will want a little bit of overlap between the various AUV paths. So you can see they're being very careful, very methodical, and they're doing. Meanwhile, they've done already a couple of hundred of line kilometers with the ship, and we assume each AUV has also done a similar amount of searching.
So clearly they've got quite a few AUVs on board. We don't know the exact number, but by the data that you're producing here, Richard, that would indicate way more than the two or three that were earlier suggested.
Well, there's definitely two. There is quite likely a third. And at one point, I did consider whether there might be a fourth,
Mm.
but we've had no information from Ocean Infinity as to exactly how many AUVs they have on board. They own 15 of these Huygens 6000 AUVs, so it's perfectly possible that they have three or four on board.
So thank you for that comprehensive update. And let's move on to the viewer questions. And one of the first questions that's been asked by a number of different viewers is who's paying the cost of this search? And we've done some research today, and it appears as though this search, the first phase of this search was back in up to 2017, cost up to US $160 million, the majority of which was borne by Australia because MH370's uh, anticipated uh, location is in Australia's search zone. And the cost there was put as high as 70 to 80 million US dollars by Australia, with Malaysia picking up the rest and China picking up a negligible amount. Now, those figures are not precise. It's very difficult to get a precise figure on that. The 2018 search by Ocean Infinity was borne by Ocean Infinity because they didn't find anything. And so far, this search is being borne by Ocean Infinity. Because Malaysia, according to the latest information, still has not signed that contract. Is that your understanding, Richard?
Yes, I find it quite amazing, really, that Malaysia haven't signed a contract and appear to still be sitting on their hands. But I take my hat off to Ocean Infinity that they have decided to go ahead with the search in any case.
Mm. So the next question we had, which has come from a number of different viewers, relates to the black boxes. Will there be anything on them? And that's a question that is quite perplexing. And you got any thoughts on that, Richard?
Yes, the black boxes are, of course, designed to withstand a an aircraft impact. They can they're crush proof, they're fireproof, they're designed to withstand the pressure at 20,000 feet below the sea, which is around 6,000 meters. So uh, they're quite likely to be still intact. The memory in the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder is also designed to remain and withstand the high pressure that a black box will be depth where we assume MH370 will be found. So I'm
Yeah.
very hopeful the data will be recovered and will be useful.
One of the viewers also asked the question, did the person who perpetrated this, assuming it was a person, and we can't assume anything else, but could they have pulled the circuit breakers, as happened with the Silk Air crash in 1997? Any thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, the Silk Air crash, the flight data recorder ceased recording just prior to the crash. 51 seconds after the flight data recorder ceased recording, the aircraft entered into a dive from 35,000 feet, and it is assumed that the captain on that aircraft deliberately committed a murder suicide. It's not as simple as pulling a circuit breaker, though. If you the flight data recorder is powered by two different sources: the 115 volt right AC bus, as well as the 28 volt right DC bus, and you have to switch off both of those electrical buses and isolate the flight data recorder to power it down. It is unlikely. In the case of Silk Air, that did happen at the last minute, but I don't think in the case of the Boeing 777 that would have happened for the entire journey, maybe at the last minute, uh, like Silk Air. But the flight data recorder has the previous 20 hours of over 1,000 parameters from the central computer on board a Boeing 777. I do expect that there is useful data on the flight data recorder.
And for the viewers' interest, the Silk Air aircraft was a Boeing 737, so two very different aircraft from Boeing. Um, One of the questions was, why is Ocean Infinity going ahead with the search without a contract being signed? Now, I know we've answered this question a few days ago, but for the benefit of those folks who are just joining us, we've put this question in. Richard, you got some thoughts on that one?
Yes, well, there was an announcement by Anthony Loke, the Minister of Transport in Malaysia, back on the 20th of December last year, where he said the Malaysian authorities had agreed in principle uh, to sign this agreement with Ocean Infinity. And then we've heard nothing since. And we were told in an email from the Air Accident Investigation Bureau in Malaysia that it is uh, still being looked at by the General's office, and but we can still expect that it will be signed in the coming days or coming weeks.
Mm.
Um, well, it still isn't, and I think Ocean Infinity basically showed a lot of patience, but at the end of the day, the teams were prepared, the ship was prepared, the equipment was prepared. The weather will close in at some point, so they wanted to get going and start searching.
And of course, they have stated to us privately when I was with Oliver Plunkett back in 2022 in London. He just said to me, we're the world's number one underwater search company. Obviously, he would say that. And he said, MH370 is unfinished business. We want to find it. And so there's a lot of passion, a lot of commitment there from Ocean Infinity. And that leads me on to the next question, which has come from a number of people again who have said, why isn't Ocean Infinity saying anything? And that's also come to me from media colleagues who say Ocean Infinity won't answer my emails. But maybe, Richard, that's because we're doing such a good job covering it for them. I don't know. Have you got any thoughts on that one?
Well, we're not the official mouthpiece of
No,
Ocean
we're not.
Infinity. They have their own department dedicated to media and press relations, and my understanding at the moment there's a news blackout, and I think that's it's fair enough. Ocean Infinity want to get on with the search,
Mm,
and when they find something, a point of interest, or even find MH370, then I'm sure they will prepare a press release and pictures and videos of that when the time comes. But at the moment, it's day two of the search, and this could go on for many days, 15 days before they have to go to Fremantle to provision and refuel. But they could then even come back and carry on thereafter if they want
mm,
to. So
sure.
it could go on for several weeks, and I think we need to be patient on that score.
And talking of pictures, another question we've had from viewers is what is going to be the quality of the imagery that these AUVs are taking compared to what it was back in 2015, 16, and again in 18. We have addressed this issue before, but again, for those viewers who have recently joined us, perhaps you might elaborate on the improvements in the imagery, Richard.
Yeah, the 2015, 2016 different underwater technology was used by Fugro and Go Phoenix ships. Quite a lot of deep tow vehicles as opposed to autonomous vehicles like the Hugin. The Hugin 6000 was used in the previous Ocean Infinity 2018, so we know what to expect in terms of the imagery. It is high resolution uh, imagery that we will have. The Hugin 6000 has a camera uh, on it, and when they investigate a point of interest, they send down an ROV, which also has cameras and lights and arms to be able to pick up items of wreckage. And some of the imagery we had in 2018 was incredibly good.
Mm,
And they found shipwrecks which 4,000 meters deep, which have been there for centuries. So
mm.
uh, if they do find MH370, I think the quality of the images we get will be very good.
A number of people have also asked us, and this goes back to the news blackout of Ocean Infinity. They want to see live vision from the search ship, and somebody else wanted to see live vision from the AUV as it's searching. So the interest level is incredibly high, obviously, but unfortunately, those sorts of requests are totally unacceptable, I would say, to Ocean Infinity, and technically, in the case of the AUV, not possible. Would that be correct?
Yeah, the AUV, when it's underwater, can communicate with the operators on the surface, but it only sends samples of the sensor data. It's not a real-time, high-resolution video broadcast.
Mm,
The operators remotely in the center in Southampton who are following Armada 7806 will have all the data and imagery once a Huygens surfaces and the data is downloaded on the ship and sent via satellite to the remote control center. So there'll be many eyes looking at the imagery. I think Ocean Infinity take the view they want to be able to conduct their business without the eyes of the world being continuously on them. I mean, it's probably bad enough that we're doing a broadcast every day,
Yes.
but that's about the limit of what they will tolerate, I think.
And I think also, to be fair to Ocean Infinity, they want to be absolutely certain of what they announce, um, and they don't want to give any false hope. They don't want to lead the relatives astray. I mean, the relatives have been on the most ghastly roller coaster over the last 11 years. So they want to be absolutely dead set certain that what they find is MH370 before they say anything whatsoever. That would be the case, Richard.
Yes, and I think also um, I'm mindful of the roller coaster ride for the relatives, but there are also technical and operational issues. For example, industry colleagues with Fugro and with Go Phoenix uh, may have missed MH370 previously.
Mm.
Um, Ocean Infinity in 2018 may have missed uh, MH370. That's the current premise of
Mm.
the search in the IG area. So
Mm.
if they then find MH370, they have a discussion with themselves and with the colleagues previously in the industry, which why did we miss it? And there will be certainly some searching and investigation going on, which will, of course, help future searches and future
Mm.
technology improvements. So I think Ocean Infinity don't want to make that debate a public one.
No, not indeed. And one of the other dynamics of the sea floor is parts of that sea floor are canyons, very deep trenches. Other parts have a lot of silt on the bottom. So, it's not just a solid, hard bottom with something sitting on top of it. It could be all sorts of things, and possibly something could have easily been missed, given the technology at the time compared to what we have today. So there's quite a few dynamics to this.
Indeed, it's a very challenging environment in which to operate at 4 to 5,000 meters deep, completely dark, very high pressure, um, freezing point temperatures in the water. And as you mentioned, with the cliffs and canyons and even underwater volcanoes.
Mm.
It's you never know whether a volcano has erupted, for example, in the
Mm.
last 10 years at some point, and volcanic ash is covering a certain area. So we need to be mindful that it's a very difficult task.
Indeed. So, on that note, Richard, I think we'll draw a line under the questions, and for viewers, in a few days' time, we'll collect up the some more questions and address those in a future episode. And we've got quite a few very interesting topics to bring to you over the next 3 or 4 days covering MH370. So, with that, Richard, thank you very much indeed for your time. Viewers, please subscribe to us, please like us, please leave more comments, love them, and we're trying to answer them all. And please tune in tomorrow for another edition of Daily Airline News. Thank you. And thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.